Today, we are starting a new series called When in Doubt. And Pastor Justin asked me to start the series. I had a little bit of doubt, and I came up with my title really fast, which is, I Have My Doubts. But today, we're going to be talking about doubt and how it can play a role in our faith. And I want to say, if you're in a season of doubt right now, it's not the end of the world. There is hope. There is a turning point. I would say that doubt wins if it's at 51% and faith is at 49%. So if you can look at it like a scale, a sliding scale of faith and doubt, we want to get to that 51% mark. We want to pass the 50% and get from a place of doubt to faith. Doubt is often seen as a disqualifier, often seen as a disqualifier. If I have doubt, why even act in the first place? I want to tell you that doubt doesn't need to be fully resolved before action takes place. Let me give you an example. My wife and I, when we started dating with the intention of getting married. When we started dating, we had tons of hope, tons of excitement, and tons of doubt. And the doubts needed to be satisfied before we moved from dating to married. I don't think I made it so easy on my wife. She is the best, but I don't think I made it easy. One time we were with her family on a bit of a vacation, and her family loves games way more than any other family. Maybe Briar's family, but her family loves games. So has anyone ever played cornhole? So her family loves, but they have unique names for all these games. So it's not cornhole, it's beanbags. So we were playing beanbags on this vacation, and I am not competitive in that way at all. In fact, just taking a moment for my confessions, I don't even like those type of games at all. Every year, this is a little bit insider information, every year we do like a family New Year's Olympics, and me and my brother-in-laws are in charge of planning the games and making it fun. I don't like it. I'm just letting you know that right now. I don't love these types of games. I'm not competitive in that way. But what I do like to do is make the competitive people, I like to twist the screws a little bit. I like to rile them up some. And my wife is quite competitive, especially in these little games. So we were playing beanbags, not cornhole, me and my brother-in-law versus my wife and one of her sisters. And we started dominating them, just dominating them. And you get to a point when you're like being the rat or the heel, where you get the person so wound up that nothing they do works. And it was so easy because I have no emotional investment in this game. I don't care if we win or we lose. But because we were winning so badly, it was so easy to just make light of how badly we were beating my wife. And when the game was over, I put out my hand to be a good sport. And she wouldn't shake my hand. And so I forget who it was, one of her family members talked her off a ledge and calmed her down, and she came to me, and I extended my hand one more time, and she extended her hand, and just as the handshake was about to happen, I pulled away. And that was cause for a lot of doubt. We almost didn't make it because of that doubt. In hindsight, I didn't really know it was as big of a deal as it was, but Tessa had to work through some things. And I had to apologize. Some doubts had to be satisfied in order for us to move forward. We have 2 kids now. Don't worry, guys. The story ends well. We worked it out. But there was some doubt that was there that Tessa had to resolve in order to see if I was going to be her Boaz. And it turns out that I was. So doubt also doesn't live in a vacuum. Doubt isn't by itself. Doubt goes hand in hand with faith. Where there's doubt, just around the corner, there's faith. And sometimes where there's faith, just around the corner, there's doubt. So I want to encourage you, if you're in a season of doubt right now, there is faith. God doesn't want you to live in doubt forever. He wants to see you through to faith. I can have seasons where, like, I pray, and I don't know if I'm praying to God or if I'm just yelling at my neighbor upstairs. You know, we can have doubts when it comes to things of faith. I don't know if you're in a season or you've been through a season where you think, man, I'm just putting too much into this faith thing, or maybe I'm not doing enough when it comes to this faith thing, or is the Bible even real? Or how can I trust the authority of the scripture? Maybe you're in a season of doubt. Or maybe God did something great in my heart last week, but now I don't feel it the same. Maybe you're in a season of doubt. I want to encourage you that faith is so much closer than you may know. Faith is so much closer than you may know. Last Sunday was Easter Sunday, which is awesome. We got to hear the story of the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ, the foundation of our faith. But the disciples, they may not have seen it quite the same as we see it right now. The disciples, they spent so much time with Jesus. They got to see Jesus do incredible things. They got to be a part of miracles. Like, they fed the 5,000. They handed out the fish and the loaves. They were a part of Jesus doing miracles. Their faith was growing. They had reason to have faith grow. And they would have seen Jesus, like, resurrect Lazarus from the dead. They would have seen him do incredible things. They would have seen Zacchaeus have a heart change, which, like, a stingy guy who no one likes became a generous guy. Like, that might even be bigger than Lazarus coming from the dead. I don't know. Some people, my goodness. Anyways, but the disciples would have seen, grown in faith. They would have seen Jesus do incredible things. And then even though Jesus would have let them know what was happening, they didn't fully developed faith. They didn't fully understand what Jesus was doing. And then when Jesus died, they were terrified. They all denied Jesus. I don't know if you have seen kids running around in church. They all follow one girl named Becky. And Becky is kind of the ringleader. So think about Peter. Peter basically was afraid of Becky. Like he denied Jesus 3 times to Becky, which is wild. So these guys who had so much faith, they saw Jesus do such incredible things. The moment that things got really, really tough, the moment where he was crucified and getting raked under the coals, they jumped ship. It's wild. And it's crazy that Thomas gets a bad rap for it. When I started coming to church, I knew a couple things before I started coming to church. One of them was that in the Bible, it says godliness is next to cleanliness. I knew that scripture. If you didn't get the joke, you should probably read your Bible, because it doesn't say that. The second thing, I knew who Doubting Thomas was, or I at least knew the reference. And then when I was in church, I remember volunteering at a Sunday school class, and they taught on Doubting Thomas and not to be a Doubting Thomas. But did you know that Thomas has only had that bad rap since like the last 400 years? When the Bible was translated, into the King James Version, that's when he got the moniker Doubting Thomas. Before that, do you know what he was known as? Saint Thomas. Saint Thomas. I think we have a lot to learn from Saint Thomas when it comes to doubt. I think we have a lot to learn from Thomas when it comes to doubt. Crazy that for like 1600 years, he was just like a good example. And then for 400 years, it's like, we don't want to do it how he did it. We want to do it our own way. But anyways, would you flip with me to John chapter 20 and verse 19. Giving a little bit of context, Jesus had died and the disciples had scattered and they're all together. And in verse 19 it says this: on the evening, that first day of the week, when the disciples were together with the doors locked for fear of the Jewish leaders. That makes sense. They were afraid. What happened to Jesus, they were afraid that that would happen to them. It wasn't just Becky. It was the leaders who actually had the power to kill Jesus. It makes sense why they were afraid. Okay. And then it says, Jesus came and stood among them and said, "Peace be with you." Peace be with you. It's cool how Jesus leads with peace. After he said this, he showed them his hands and side. He satisfied some doubts. The disciples were overjoyed when they saw the Lord. Again, Jesus said, "Peace be with you. As the Father has sent me, I am sending you." There's some mission there. And with that, he breathed on them and said, "Receive the Holy Spirit. If you forgive anyone their sins are forgiven. If you do not forgive them, they are not forgiven." And everyone turn to your neighbor and breathe on them. I'm just kidding. Don't do that. If you do that, that would be really weird. Don't breathe on your neighbor. The disciples, they got to see Jesus, and they had the same doubts as Thomas. They fled, they left Jesus, they dispersed, and then they were together, and they would have been living in fear, and Jesus satisfies some doubts. He shows who he is to them, and they now have faith. Though Thomas is the one who gets a bad rap. Check this out. In verse 24, it says this: "Now Thomas, also known as Didymus, one of the 12, was not with the disciples when Jesus came. So the other disciples told him, 'We have seen the Lord.' But he said to them, 'Unless I see the nail marks in his hands and put my fingers where the nails were and put my hand into his side, I will not believe.'" Do any of you have friends that even if they tell you something that's true, it's really hard to believe? Just a little pastoral aside, be the type of friend that your friends listen to. Be the type of friends that your friends trust. Because they were telling Thomas the truth. Thomas didn't believe them. I don't know if this is a bit of an indictment on the disciples, but Jesus didn't pick the best, most polished people. He could have picked the best, most polished people to be his disciples, but he chose kind of a ragtag group of people. We're kind of a ragtag group of people. It's okay. It's okay. But be the type of friend that your friends will trust. We can learn from Thomas a bit. I have a friend who I should have trusted a long time ago that I didn't. I remember in 2010, I was working at a church, and I was on my lunch break, and I was making $9.75 an hour. I don't know if that was minimum wage at the time. I think it was a little bit light, but I was serving in the house of the Lord, so better is one day there than 1,000 elsewhere. Anyways, a friend came and visited me on my lunch break, and he told me about this cool new thing called Bitcoin. And the way he was describing it was not so convincing. He was talking about this like crypto wallet and like you can buy things, maybe even a pizza one day. And like he's saying, but you need to invest because it'll change your life. And the destabilization, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, cool. He's like, just invest 1 hour's wage into that. I was like, yeah, I'll think about it. I'm not going to do that. Do you know what that would be worth today? I don't remember whereabouts in the year it was, but if it was, it would be worth anywhere that like $9.75 would be worth anywhere between $22 and $260 million today. Something tells me, though, that he also didn't take his own advice. There's no evidence in his life that he's a decamillionaire. Unless he just loves being a plumber and like does it for the love of the game, I don't think that he took his own advice. I don't think he took his own advice. So again, try to be the friends that people will listen to or take what you have seriously. But that's not even my point. Let's look at Thomas's life, because for 1,600 years, Thomas was a great example of how to handle doubt, how to handle faith, how to work faith out. So point number one is that we can take away from Thomas is lean in and don't shy away. Lean in and don't shy away. Let's look at verse 26. A week later, his disciples were in the house again, and Thomas was with them. Though the doors were locked, Jesus came and stood among them and said, "Peace be with you." Then he said to Thomas, "Put your fingers here. See my hands? Reach out your hand and put it in my side. Stop doubting and believe." Thomas said to him, "My Lord and my God." My Lord and my God. See, Thomas didn't shy away from the doubts that he had. It's not crazy to think that dead people stay dead. You know? Like, it's not crazy at all to think that dead people stay dead. The only time that Thomas would have known dead people rising was when Jesus rose Lazarus from the dead. He wouldn't, and then who's there to raise Jesus from the dead? So everything he would have known would be that dead people stay dead. So he had his doubts, but he was faithful with them. He didn't deny that he had a doubt. We need to be not Canadian when it comes to our doubts. See, Canadians, we have a tendency to, if it rocks the boat, we just don't mention it. If we have a doubt, we just don't share it. We let it kind of stay in the background. We let it fester. We let it grow and grow and grow and grow until a doubt. Now we went from 51% doubt all the way to 99% doubt or 100% doubt and didn't end up getting the doubt resolved. So I want to encourage you, just like Thomas, don't shy away from your doubts. Like, we are so much closer to faith than doubt. We just need to pursue the doubt all the way through. Like, when we were dating, Tessa pursued the doubt of me being not so nice. It was just a joke. But we had to work through that, you know? So work through your doubts. Another thing we can glean from Thomas's life is he stayed in community. My second point is pursue community. Don't do doubt alone. Don't do doubt alone. Doubt can often make us want to isolate ourselves. We want to shy away. We don't want other people to know our business. Or we want to resolve it on our own, and maybe it's a noble thought, but it's not the way we should do it. See, Thomas, he didn't shy away from sticking around the other disciples. There was a level of loyalty there. There was a level of of community there that we need to have. If you flip with me to Hebrews chapter 10 and verse 22, check this out. Let us draw near to God with a sincere heart and with the full assurance that faith brings, having our hearts sprinkled to cleanse us from a guilty conscience, and having our bodies washed with pure water. Let us hold unswervingly to the hope we profess, for he who promised is faithful. And let us consider how we may spur one another on towards love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together, as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another. Encouraging one another. Man, when we're in seasons of doubt, we need encouragement. There's a couple men here at the church that they meet relatively regularly and hold each other accountable for things. They confess sin to one another, they pray for one another, they encourage one another, and then they hold each other accountable. How great would that be if we had some doubt in an area and we had someone encouraging us and walking through life with us? We're not just doing it alone. See, Thomas had the right idea. Thomas had the right idea to stay in community. To stay in community. And another thing we can take from Thomas is to choose to be faithful. Choose to be faithful. Thomas, a cool thing about Thomas is that when he was with the disciples and Lazarus had died, he was obviously with Jesus and the disciples, and one of Lazarus' sisters came to Jesus and was like, hey, you need to come and raise, Lazarus has died. Can you come and revive him? And they had just been in Samaria, which is where Lazarus was, and Jesus was threatened, they were going to kill Jesus. They were going to stone Jesus. So Jesus and the disciples, they got out of Dodge. And then someone saying, hey, you guys got to come back and raise Lazarus from the dead. And check out what it says here. In chapter 11, verse 11, Jesus just explained some things. But now he says this. After he had said this, he went on to tell them, our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I'm going there to wake him up. He's using some imagery. They know he's dead. The disciples, they know he's dead, and they don't want any part of going back to Samaria. And it says this, his disciples replied, Lord, if he sleeps, he'll get better. Jesus had been speaking of his death, but his disciples thought he meant natural sleep. Just a little aside. My daughter Willow, God bless her, she loves to play doctor, but she wants to be the patient, but for some reason I don't want to be a doctor. Sorry, Caitlin, I want to be the receptionist. And so I always respond, she has to call the doctor and then I'm the receptionist. And I try to give medical advice as a receptionist. So it's usually put a Band-Aid on it. It is get some bed rest. And my daughter now, if anyone's sick, she's like, probably some bed rest. So someone's got a cold, she's like, they need to go to the hospital and get some bed rest. And so my medical knowledge is about 2,000 years old. However, I do know I need to wash my hands. So maybe it's a little bit more modern. I don't know. Caitlin can let me know later how I'm doing. But the disciples were like, maybe he just needs some bed rest, which is crazy. And then he told them plainly, guys, Lazarus is dead. And for your sake, I'm glad I was not there, so that you may believe. But let us go to him. And then in verse 16, it says this, "Then Thomas, also known as Didymus, said to the rest of the disciples, 'Let us go that we may die with him.'" So Thomas had a limited amount of understanding, but he was faithful. Do you know faithfulness is putting faith into action? It really comes at that 51%. A lot of times we can choose to go from doubt to faith by just taking the first step. Thomas had the right idea by being willing to follow the Lord. My daughter Willow, I've mentioned her, and I'll probably always mention her whenever I preach. But she is so funny when it comes to food. She loves most foods. She just doesn't know it yet. So when dinner time comes around, Tessa, the good cook, makes food. If I made food, she wouldn't like it, or it would just be pizza. But Tessa will make something good, and Willow doesn't know that she likes it yet, so it's usually, "Willow, you're going to like this." So she has trust in me that I know what's good for her, that I know what she's going to enjoy. And it's usually like a little bit of a faith-building moment because she has to get ready for it. I don't know if areas that you have doubt in, I think that there's a faith-building moment before we choose to move to faith. And then she trusts me with the first bite. Usually eyes are squinting, and she may lead with, "I don't like it, Dad." And then she tries it. It's like, "Not so good, huh? Well," she's like, "It's actually pretty good." And then she'll devour the whole thing. What if we were like that when it came to trusting the Lord? What if we were like that when it came to areas of doubt, knowing that God has good things in store for us? See, Thomas, a cool thing about him is he had that level of faithfulness. You can have faithfulness existing in the same realm as doubt. And as God satisfies the doubts, in the same way that we had to satisfy doubts before getting married, God can do incredible things with that he's building in you. See, Thomas, look at this. Thomas said to him, "My Lord and my God," back to 20 and verse 28. Then Jesus told him, "Because you have seen me, you have believed." Because you have seen me, you have believed. That's cool. It doesn't take away from what's about to be said, okay? That's great for Thomas. And then he says, "Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed." That's us. I don't know about you, but I've never put my finger in Jesus's side. I've never put my finger in Jesus's hands. But that blessing is for us. And what's more, church history would say that Thomas, after this, he went to be a missionary and ultimately a martyr in India. And you can trace communities back about 2,000 years. So I have no reason to believe that it wasn't Thomas who planted those churches and started doing that work. See, he had the faithfulness to be like, "Hey guys, we're going back to Samaria with Jesus. We may just end up dying with him, but we'll go together." Then when he has full understanding, he goes on a mission that's so much bigger than him because he understands the mission now, that Jesus isn't just going to die for no reason, but he's dying for the sins of the world. And there's a value in going and being sent. And he was sent, and to this day, in those communities, present day, there's about 6 million believers because of where he went. That doesn't include the past 2,000 years. I don't know the grand total, but there's 6,000 believers because Thomas was faithful. Thomas was faithful. Even though he had doubts, he was willing to see the doubts through. He didn't shy away from the doubts. So if you have doubts today, don't shy away from them. Lean into them. Lean into them. If you have doubts today, don't isolate yourself. Pursue community. And if you have doubts today, choose to be faithful. Take those steps to see your doubts resolved.